Yeah, it's preparing right now, and I will mute it as quickly as I can so you don't get feedback. All right, I believe it's going. So we should be clear.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to the Public Safety Committee meeting, January 7th, 2021. Michelle, would you mind starting by calling the roll?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. And I will call the roll. Marshal Scott Collier.
Here.
Captain James Mundell. He is absent. Deputy Chief John Bradley.
Here.
Council Member Liaison Dave Bertolino.
Here.
Board Member Lynette Baker.
Here.
Board Member Denny Welker.
Here.
And Board Member Jeff Baker.
Here.
Oh, he's here.
Signing.
Oh, there you are.
Yep.
All right.
Such I'm driving home from work, almost home.
Oh, great. Okay. And then it looks like we have Rick Brown, Steve Cross, and we also have Sergeant Brad Winling with us.
Yes, and it looks like Captain Mundell is logging in as well.
Oh, great.
Yep, I'm in. Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, first order of business, approval of the minutes from last meeting in December. I hope everyone has had a chance to review the draft. I know I did. Are there any objections or corrections? Additions, deletions? Hearing none, I'll accept that as a motion to approve. And since we had no objections, unless anyone wishes to object now, we'll consider those approved. Hearing none, so ordered. All right. Moving on now, it's time for public comment.
Mr. Marshall, you do have Ms. McCutcheon. I know she wants to make some comments, and we do have two, I believe, two trustees with Evergreen subdivision that are attendees right now. So if you want to allow them to speak now, or if you want to wait till we get to that applicable topic, that's kind of your call, I guess.
What is the, which of the items is their topic? Because maybe we just move that ahead and.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. We have the Fullerton Meadows and both that and Forest Leaf Parkway on the agenda,
Okay.
which I'm sure McCutcheon's here to speak about, as well as the Jim Steins and Christine Walker.
Okay. Would anyone mind if we held up if we skipped ahead from the foreign information, we'll just come back to that after we go through these things. So that way, if they're done, they can leave this meeting. Does anyone have a problem with that? We'll just go a little bit out of order. Okay. So why don't we start then with old business on Fullerton Meadows Drive.
Thank you, Marshall. I'll do a quick introduction in regard to this topic. If you recall, you did have this presented to you in September initially. The concern is speeding traffic on Fullerton Meadows Drive. I wanted to point out a few things since the September meeting. We did another speed survey. The Wildwood precinct was kind enough to do one more to see what the speeds were in that area. It showed a modest decline to 1 mile an hour. The 85th percentile was still 32 miles an hour. The 50th, 27 miles per hour at the location that they did the speed survey. So I wanted to point that out to you as well. If you do recall from the September meeting, there was discussion about in the future constructing a raised median island on Fullerton Meadows Drive.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something Ms. McCutcheon had recommended. I did want to mention to you that it was added to the 5-year capital improvement program as a project. So right now it is programmed as a capital improvement project for the year 2024. So that did occur essentially in the months immediately following your September meeting. And as I mentioned a short while ago, we have Jim Steins and Christine Walker with us with Evergreen, and I believe they want to speak or are here to provide feedback relative to this topic, as well as Forest Leaf Parkway, which is also on the agenda.
Okay.
So with regard to that, I will turn it over to, if we want, we can turn it over to the folks that would like to make comments. It's up to your discretion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what this is for. Ms. McCutcheon, would you like to lead off?
Sure. While I was knocking on doors, the Fullerton Meadow issue came up with the residents that, although they don't have driveways that come off of Fullerton Meadows, they do utilize Fullerton Meadows, of course, quite a bit. So they were complaining about speed and so forth. Their preference is a raised median overall, generally, which I also think is the best approach. However, speed bumps in Ward 5 have not worked. There's been a lot of controversy about that. We had to spend money pulling them off of Green Pines Drive. So I do not suggest that we go in that direction. In short term, I think the LED radar sign is a very good idea. While it was in place, I guess a few months ago, the residents on Fullerton Meadows whose driveway do go in right onto Fullerton Meadows seem to be a little bit more pleased regarding speeding. Generally, it's the residents whose driveway leads into Fullerton Meadows that have been complaining for many years about speeding through that section. That area is flat versus descending down the down Fullerton Meadows. I understand what the department's saying about bad weather. Those roads are tricky in bad weather without stop signs there, but I think there is an issue there. And I think we need to listen to residents and do something to address that issue. Again, long-term, I think the raised mediums is the way to go. But in the short term, I could certainly support the LED radar signs.
Great, thank you. And Rick, you did say that the raised median is on the plan, correct?
Yes, it was added to the 5-year capital improvement program for the city for the year 2024. So it's at this point, it's still a few years away, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
But it did get added. So.
All right, and Ms. Clark, were you here to speak on this?
No,
Okay,
I have another issue.
gotcha. Mr. Steins et al.?
I think. Okay, Mr. Steins, I think I unmuted you.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I had I just sent it out in the chat message that I do really like that radar, the LED radar that was on the sign. I think as even as small as that is, I think it made a huge difference. It's so easily noticeable when you're coming down Fullerton Meadows going west. And I would love to see that there, if not permanent, just on more of a long-term basis.
Okay.
The other issue I have is the intersection of Fullerton Meadows and Forest Leaf Parkway. It's a 4-way stop there. That is a huge problem because I live right down the street on Windowleaf Drive, and I see people running that 4-way stop all the time. And I'm not talking at slow speeds. I'm talking literally just driving through it at the speed limit. So, I mean, that would be another issue. But the LED radar to me would be a first big step. And then maybe the divider, street divider, in a couple of years.
Okay, great. Christine? Rick, if you can unmute.
I would second what Jim is saying. Basically, those are the issues that I would see. The fact that I do see people running the stop signs all the time through most of the neighborhood, quite frankly. And that I think that the LED radar might help if people pay attention to that, because if they don't pay attention to the stop signs, are they going to pay attention to that? I don't know. And then the median addition eventually would probably help also.
Was the LED radar more just of a test to see how it would work, or is that something that's planned for other streets in the city?
It's certainly something we can provide on a permanent basis if that's your desire. We've recently acquired, well, we've done it before. We have a couple installations, so I think especially on Fullerton Meadows, that would be a really good spot for it, given the traffic speeds we're seeing there and the volume of traffic. So if there's a desire to see it, I think we can get it done.
And I did get positive feedback with the LED radar sign there.
These would be solar mounted, solar powered, so they'd be on a signpost. It does have to be obviously in the sun, but I think there's a couple spots there. You've referenced the location westbound already. That existing speed limit sign is a really good spot, but we could move it a little bit either way if need be. The other direction, eastbound, I think there is definitely some room to place one near Elm Forest. Now, it would probably be a new sign potentially on the side of a property owner's home, so that can sometimes be a little bit touchy. So we'd probably want to make that contact before we just put it in the ground and make sure they're not going to be upset with the idea.
Is there, and this might be a question for the police, do they keep track of like how many tickets are given in that area on Fullerton Meadows or Forest Street Parkway, or is that just not possible? Or do you see many? Do you give out many tickets in that area?
Well, it is trackable. I don't have that number right offhand unless Sergeant Wendling knows offhand. But we do track that.
And I do appreciate it because I'll have the police, they'll sit on my street, further down from that four-way stop, and I'll see them every now and then. But it would be interesting to get a tracking as far as, if, tickets, the amount of tickets that are given in that area, because I do believe, one, you've got hills, pretty steep hills at that point coming down Fullerton Meadows and Forest Street Parkway, and you're gaining speed anyway. So I'd like to see something done at some point, but let's start with the LED radar. I think that's the first big step I'd like to see. Frankly like to see that in a lot of neighborhoods. So,
well, to touch on that or respond to that, the LED speed sign, the police department has a couple of those, and just what you saw, those are constantly on the move. Based on complaints or issues, we put those in various subdivisions for a week or a couple weeks, and then it moves on to the next area. And from that feedback that we've gotten about those signs, the city and the Department of Public Works, made the decision to get those permanent type signs. The one that was there runs on a battery, but the solar ones are the long-term. And it's really up to Public Works, but our suggestion was, install it in a location for 6 months or a year, where it's more of a permanent device. If it loses its usage or something else, we're talking about construction down the road. If there's no longer a need for it, then they could pull it out and reinstall it somewhere else. But the city has taken that step to come up with a more permanent device, which, like you said, has had some impact. So, we definitely support that for sure.
Yeah, I know there's speeding issues all through Ward 5. I know there's another big one at West Glen Farms and Forest Street Parkway. I get lots of complaints of that area as well. I would suggest that we just start with the LED light on the one side of the street, because I think descending the hill is more of an issue than going up. And if we continue to see a problem, then maybe add a second one, especially given in that it would be right there in a residence yard.
I agree.
So would that be the, I'm thinking of the area, would that be the westbound direction or the eastbound that you would recommend the sign? I think it's west.
Westbound, I think, right, Rick?
I believe that's what you're saying, Ms. McCutcheon.
Yeah, it's where the one was before.
Yeah, it'd be headed from, you're going from West Glen Farms over to Forest Leaf Parkway.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
And we could certainly do one and then monitor that situation. And if it's received well, consider the second one. I'm certainly favorable of doing that approach. So we don't take too big of steps.
Okay.
Lynette, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I'm just taking it all in, and so thank you.
Okay, I saw the hand come up. So why don't we do this? So I think we have a clear suggestion here from our guests and from Rick and Captain Mundell that we place an LED sign in the westbound side of the lane. Be happy to put forth that as a motion, just so we have that to discuss while we're here. Is there a second? And someone can just raise their hand. Perfect. We have a second from Mr. Bertolino and Mr. Baker. So let's open the floor to discussions. Any thoughts, concerns? I think it's a good idea. Dave, please, let's not stand on formality.
Yeah, Rick, are we talking just Fullerton Meadows? What about Forest Leaf?
Well, Mr. Berlino, Forest Leaf is also on the agenda separately. So obviously those two are adjacent to each other, and we have the applicable trustees with us. So I think we'll probably talk about that next, if that's okay, Marshall, or?
Yeah. One motion at a time, I guess. So, Jeff? No? You're on mute.
Do I need to unmute him or something?
I don't know. Doesn't show muted. I know
How
my
about
wife
now?
wishes I had a mute
There you
button.
go. Now we can hear you.
I'm here. Okay, I'm back in business. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you had a question or something you wanted to say.
No, I was getting my stuff situated. I finally parked where I could
Gotcha.
finally get situated. So I'm
Gotcha.
so sorry.
No problem. Any objection to putting that there? Otherwise, we'll move on to the vote. I'm not seeing any. So all those in favor of the motion to place the LED radar sign on the westbound direction on Fullerton, what street, Fullerton Meadow or
Fullerton Meadows.
Fullerton Meadow? Please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Very nice. Thank you. Why don't we then move to Forest Leaf Parkway, since we have everyone who needs to be involved here? Is that okay with everyone? We'll hopscotch it around. Hearing no objection. So Rick, Forest Leaf Parkway.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. I'll provide a few comments and I'll try to be fairly brief. This is a very similar request, as in my opinion, as the one you just heard at Fullerton Meadows. Forest Leaf Parkway essentially intersects Fullerton Meadows. It runs north-south from Route 100 up to West Glen Farms. It does have a fair amount of traffic on it, as does Fullerton Meadows, a very similar volume, in fact, around 1,500 cars a day. So it does serve more or less as a collector street, unfortunately, as well as a residential local road. That section of, I would point out a few things. The section of Forest Leaf Parkway in question is similar to the part of the section of Fullerton Meadows in that it is wider than most of our standard residential streets. It's about 32 feet in width or 33 feet in width. So that certainly doesn't help the concern with speeding, quite frankly, and it very well may be one of the largest contributing factors. There is a grade school to the north. If you're not aware and you haven't been through that area, Green Pines Elementary is located just to the north on Green Pines Drive. It's probably worth pointing that out as well. As it is a residential area, there's on-street parking as you would expect. Ms. McCutcheon could probably speak to it as well as Mr. Bertolino, but I believe this has been a complaint more than once in the past. And before my time, it's clear there was attempts made to try to slow traffic. Ms. Berlin had already mentioned the speed cushions that were installed at Evergreen Forest Drive. Those were done about 2013. I would say that those were actually, based on the speed surveys, very effective initially. Based on the speed surveys, we actually saw a 5 mile an hour decrease in the 85th percentile when those were just open to traffic. But the problem with them is that they left gaps, and the intent was to let the emergency vehicles pass over the speed cushions. But of course, the motorists and the area drivers do the same thing. So their effectiveness clearly over time has diminished. And I think it's fair to say they probably have little impact right now. There was a enhanced crosswalk installed in Evergreen Forest at some point prior to that as well. And if you saw the photograph in the memo or you're familiar with the area, the curb line was pulled in from there to the roadway. Idea twofold: to slow traffic by trying to squeeze the width of the road down a bit, shorten the path of a pedestrian crossing the road as well, to make it a little safer for pedestrians. So that was done at that location prior to 2012. And I know there's a number of those type of installations in this area that were done prior to my time being with the city of Wildwood. So the point being that this has been a bit of an ongoing concern in this location as well from my perspective. I did provide you some speed survey information that was obtained by the Wildwood precinct. The more recent one we did in December of 2020 didn't show as significant of a problem at Evergreen Forest, where we took the speed survey perhaps as on Fullerton Meadows. The 85th was 29 miles an hour and the 50th was 24. So still higher than we'd like to see, not quite as high as we saw in Fullerton Meadows. So I wanted to point that out to you. The final note: this does have a another effort that the city had made in years past was the Keep Kids Alive, Drive 25 speed limit zones, and there are some signs designating that zone on Forest Leaf Parkway. We haven't been using this program too much recently, and I think in large part because the areas that were applicable have been pretty much taken up. But that program was intended to provide a unique speed limit sign as well as increased fines in areas where we felt there was a need, typically open spaces, parks where kids might be. I'm sure Green Pines School led in large part to it being implemented in this area. So I wanted to point that out as well. So as far as addressing the problem, I think in my memo referenced some of the same potential measurements that we've talked about on Fullerton Meadows. Again, the department is not a fan of using stop signs strictly for speed control. And again, the concern here is similar as Fullerton Meadows. There is a fairly steep grade on Forest Leaf Parkway. So that would potentially cause some concerns in icy and snow conditions. And I would point out, we do have an all-way stop at Green Pines Drive on the north, and as was referenced earlier at Fullerton Meadows on the south, and then not midway, but within that section of road, we do have one at Birch Forest as well. So we do have small all-way stops in place. So I had referenced the potential of using the LED radar signs as a permanent installation for Forest Leaf Parkway as well. I think that would be something we could do if you'd be interested in doing it. We'd also suggested the possibility of doing that only for the speed limit signs. So the LED speed limit signs would have the LEDs around the perimeter of the sign to try to increase the conspicuity of that sign. So that would be an option as well. And then finally, I mentioned the width of the road, and frankly, these wider streets are good candidates for traffic calming or the installation of medians. Or the other idea was, as I referenced in my memorandum, what they call curb extensions, or some people call them bulb outs. And the idea is very similar as to the crosswalk that was installed there at Evergreen Forest Drive. You constrict the width of the road at the intersections. So you slow down the traffic at the intersections, you reduce the crosswalk length for pedestrians. So that would be something, I think if you, I think what would be very practical in some respects would be to combine a project that we already have on the capital improvement programs for Fulton Meadows and maybe consider doing some enhancements on this section of Forest Leaf Parkway, frankly, in particular looking at the curb extensions at those intersections and trying to tighten down the road and make it less of a speedway and more of a two-lane highway, or not a highway, excuse me, a two-lane residential street. So with that, I'll stop and I'll turn it over for any questions you have. If there's comments from Ms. Bertolino, excuse me, or our trustees, I'm sure we'd be glad to hear from them.
Absolutely. Dave, any comments? I gotta know you.
No, I would agree with Rick. I think we need to do something there, and I think he's got some great suggestions. I agree. The stop signs don't work. In fact, at one point, I heard our previous chief saying that people speed uphill faster than they go downhill. I've always found that fascinating, but I guess people do that. But I like the idea of the LED signs on both of those roads, and like Rick's suggestion of either some raised median or some bump out at the intersections in our long-term capital. I like both ideas.
Okay, Ms. McCutcheon.
This last request came about because apparently there is a school bus stop right there at Evergreen Forest Drive and Forest Lake Parkway. And parents were complaining because vehicles were going through that intersection rather quickly. So I don't know if we might want to just try a police officer or somebody sitting there at pickup time, drop off time for a while, see what that does. I think an LED light is a good idea. I also think raised medians are a good idea. I have gotten some complaints about the cutouts on West Glen Farms. So I think either, if we want to, I'm guessing the most inexpensive way is to try to station a police officer there for a while, see what happens. But I think the LED light is a good suggestion as well.
In addition, that intersection at Forest Leaf Parkway and Fullerton Meadows, and in addition to maybe having police there more often to look for people running the stop signs, did I hear you say something earlier about you could have a stop sign that would have the LED lights around the outside of it, the perimeter of it? Was that mentioned or no?
I think that was the LED speed sign.
Well, I know there's a speed sign, but is there a way to have is there a stop sign that would have like the LED lights around the outside of a stop sign actually at that intersection, at least for the people coming out Forest Leaf Parkway going north? Just to throwing something out there, and I don't know if that's even available.
It is available commercially. We have not done it yet in Wildwood, but that would be a possibility. So far, we've recommended it to be done with the speed limit signs, but we could certainly consider doing it with the stop sign.
Just another option. So,
okay. Ms. Walker.
Oh yeah, I was just going to first. I want to ask Rick to repeat something. The 80th, I don't have the memo in front of me. Did you say the 80th percentile speed was 29?
The 85th percentile was 29 miles an hour. Yes.
Yeah. So it's not out. It's not out of the. I mean, if it's posted at 25, we're not talking about some really excessive speed. Anyway, I like the idea of the LED speed limit signs, and I think you've got some good ideas for a more permanent solution. So I would certainly support that. And the last thing I'd like to see is the proliferation of stop signs throughout Wildwood. I don't think anybody else wants that either.
Ms. Walker, did you have any comments?
Well, when you were talking about adding more bump outs, I would be concerned about adding those at the bottom of any hill that someone might end up running into because of the slick times. You know, when we do have slick weather, I have lost control of my car going down hills and never had an accident, but there have been people coming the other way. We've just been lucky. If you add a bump out in any area like that, I think you would have people running into those all the time. But other than that, I think the LED speed warnings would be the best.
Captain Mundell, any comments? You were Sergeant Wendling.
I agree also. Rick and I have talked about that stop sign with the LED outline. So I'll, certainly support that. And, maybe we're looking for an opportunity, Rick, to try it out somewhere. I think we just found a candidate if that's what we were doing. So.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We could try it out and see how it's received.
Replace one of the existing?
We could do it on one approach or two approaches.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mr. Steins, you said you were saying northbound or southbound?
When you're coming off of Manchester going down Forest Leaf Parkway going north.
North. Okay.
So it's at the intersection of Forest Leaf Parkway and Fullerton Meadows. The stop sign there, that would be at the southeast corner.
All right. So I'm hearing a sort of a consensus building around, obviously, the replacing the current stop sign at Fullerton Meadows with the LED alert sign, but also adding somewhere between, I think we're talking Black Forest and or an Evergreen Forest, the LED speed indicator.
Yeah, is there a desire to do one only for now, or and if so, what direction are you talking about? Northbound potentially, or going down?
Yeah, I would just go with one to start, see what the feedback is, and see how effective it is. And it would be, going from Manchester Road up to Green Pines Drive. So that's that north, I guess.
That'd be northbound.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The real question for Rick is there money in the budget? Because these are not cheap items, that's for sure. So.
That's a good question.
That's better than I can, but I don't think so. Dave, are you aware of any funding in the budget for that?
Any excess? No. I guess we could always look at Prop P money, and that's a safety issue, but maybe not.
Yeah, I don't have my 2020 budget. I typically do try to keep a very little bit of money available for this kind of purpose, and I was believing I did leave enough in there for this purpose. I guess we'll double check that, and yeah, the Prop P money perhaps would be another possibility. Mr. Cross, I don't know if you have an opinion in the matter.
Yes. Well, first of all, in your budget for 2021, yes, I and I don't have my budget book here right in front of me, but you probably, I would assume, had budgeted some dollars, to cover these kinds of things. I don't know what that dollar amount is. Regarding Prop P, public safety funds, those are always available. I mean, there's a significant reserve. We used a little bit of that reserve when we were preparing the 2021 budget. So we still have a little over $1 million in Prop P reserve that can potentially be used, and that's for public safety, police and public safety items, which these certainly qualify for. So that is an option for funding.
I didn't want to speak too quickly, but I just opened my 2020 budget and we do have 20,000 for traffic safety improvements in there for 2021. So that's exactly what that money is set up for. So I think we can do it out of that budget.
What's the cost, Rick? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, the LED radar signs are about $4,000 each, so they are a little pricey. The LED signs with them embedded in the perimeter, when we priced those, they were cheaper. They were around $1,200 to acquire those, so they were a little bit cheaper. But we could certainly afford to do 2 LED radar signs permanent, and then add the other LED stop sign. I think we could afford to do that.
Wouldn't it have to be a different agenda item?
Given that they're under 10,000, I would typically feel comfortable moving forward and installing those upon the approval of the Board of Public Safety. We could certainly take it to council if that's the desire.
All right, so well, for purposes of this meeting then, what I'll put on the floor for the group to consider is the replacement of the existing stop signs on Forest Lake Parkway at Fullerton Meadows with the LED lighted signs and the addition of an LED speed sign for northbound traffic in Forest Lake Parkway. Is there a second? Dave Bertolito, thank you very much. Questions, discussion for the board members? Seeing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All those opposed? Hearing none, unanimously accepted.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all for letting me join your meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for attending.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
New Year.
Okay. After all that, Ms. Clark?
If we could move back to public comment just for a
Yes.
moment so that I could ask a couple of questions. Is the Wildwood Emergency Operations Plan update, has that been completed, and when is that going to be available? And my second question would be, have we produced a file of MSDS's of the material safety data sheets for all the chemicals that we use at the city and by the city?
I'll speak to the emergency operation plan. It is done. I'm waiting for signature from emergency management, which should happen hopefully tomorrow. And then that'll be given to the mayor. So once that's done, I believe they will, Steve can probably speak to that. We'll copy that to council.
Thank you very much.
And I appreciate your input on that. It was certainly taken seriously from what you provided. So I appreciate your help.
No problem. Thank you.
The second part of your question, Councilmember Clark, was relative to the safety sheets.
Yes, the material safety data sheets. I had talked with Joe Venich about this a number of times. Do we have an OSHA book with all of the chemicals that we use in and around the city, in public works, and in the city hall, paints, pesticides, anything that we use that would be considered, that would need an MSDS on it? Do we have a list of those in case we ever need them if someone is affected by the chemicals that we use?
I'm not aware that we have that at this point in time. I don't think, Steve, you probably aren't familiar with that either. I
am familiar with it. Ms. Clark, I am aware that you made that request. I spoke with Mr. Vunich briefly when the initial request was made. The short answer would be to your question at this point in time is no, we don't have a complete book of all MSDS sheets. That's quite an undertaking, actually. But I will follow up with Mr. Vunich tomorrow to see which ones we do have and what the plan is in terms of generating a book with all MSDS sheets. But that project is not we don't have that booklet at this point in time. But I'm happy to follow up with Mr. Vunich on that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, so there's public comment. Moving back to the beginning of the agenda. Unless there was something else under public comment, Ms. Clark?
No, that's all I had. Thank
Okay,
you.
great, thank you. Moving on to item 4, we'll start with the update on the deer counting. Brad?
So yeah, we've completed the counting and all the data has been forwarded to our planning and analysis unit. So they'll undertake the analysis portion of the data, and hopefully all that will be completed within another month to 2 months. So it just depends on their workload and how much time they have to dedicate to publishing the report. So
got it.
Hopefully it'll be available sooner than later.
Awesome, thank you.
We'll try and shoot for the next public safety meeting, which would be a deer subcommittee meeting anyway, I believe. So
yeah, okay.
If we're still on track with those, so either way.
Scott, if I may, the question came up again at the mayor's coffee this morning from a resident about, what's our next step with the deer management, and it was mentioned that this would be discussed on at least the count. And I think that the more overarching question is, what are we actually going to do? Once we have the count, great, we know where the starting point is. But where are we with the deer management proposal? And can that be moved to council as quickly as possible? I guess
well, the short answer to that is we're still culling through some of the other data, answering a couple of questions that some of the council members had. My hope would be once we have the count, because that's going to establish the baseline. My goal is to have a meeting in February on this and try and get to some resolution so that perhaps we can get something to council or back to the Board of Public Safety, March, April timeframe would be my hope.
Okay.
Rick, has the suggested plan, or Marshall, either one, gone to, was it Admin Public Works that was looking at that? And have we gotten feedback from them that?
Yes. And that was, those are some of the issues we're had to go back on.
So I think if we can do a deer committee meeting next month, in February, that would be helpful to move that along. And if we have the count data by that time, I would think we should be able to get through that in fairly short order, perhaps, and get it turned around. That's just
I'll see what I can do to get them working on that. It's the end of the year, so obviously our analysis unit has a lot of end of the year stuff,
right,
that they have to work on. So it's one more item that the timing was just the same as year end. So
sure. So Dave, to answer your question, that is the goal.
That's good. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Nobody wants this done more than I.
Yeah.
So, Okay, so we took care of the old business. Moving on to new business. Oh, excuse me. No, we got sorry, Jim, 2020 crime summary. You thought
Well, again, I don't have, hard statistical numbers. I can kind of speak generally. Our serious crime is down. Our serious assaults, have dropped. And again, we don't have that many. So it'd be a number of, in 2019, there were maybe like 15 serious assaults.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2020, we're looking at 7. So the percentages look really great, but in reality, the numbers are pretty low, compared to other places.
Right.
Our burglaries are down. We went from about 27 burglary, and I'm going to say about, because it really depends on how things are classified in the crime reporting index. So from about 27 down to 21. The two things that are kind of up everywhere, and it's really across the entire region, is theft. Our auto theft, our vehicle thefts in Wildwood is typically around 6 a year. For the past several years, it was exactly 6. 2020, significant increase, up to 17. Along with, theft from vehicles or other types. It's kind of general theft. So generally it's going to be theft from vehicles, but it could be, a theft from a store in that mix too, when I'm talking these general numbers. So that increased from about 76 incidents to 100. So it is an increase, but it's not a huge number there. By percentage, it looks big, but in actual number, it's, we're talking about 25 incidents. Currently we're still facing this theft issue, and these are crimes of opportunity. So we continue to put it out in the newsletter, reminders. We mail out open garage door letters. So when the officers are patrolling, they see an open garage door overnight. That's the opportunity for somebody to walk in and grab something.
Right.
And I'll say all of our auto thefts are keys. So the old time, breaking the steering column and hot wiring the car, that type of stuff, that doesn't really happen, because vehicles have changed over the years to really prevent that. But key fobs, it was a wonderful invention, but we get kind of lazy with it, and I forget it in my own car sometimes. If the key fob's in the console or in the cup holder or something like that, it's as good as leaving the car running, because they got what they need as far as the keys. So the majority of our thefts out of vehicles, a lot of it's kind of petty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But these are unlocked vehicles. So the current trend, which has been going on for some time now, and again, it's throughout the metropolitan area,
Sure.
is just to roll into a residential area or an apartment complex, something like that, and just try car doors. So they're not breaking windows typically at night.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's too easy to find car doors that are open. I can't compare Wildwood to our neighbors. Our immediate neighbors are Baldwin and Ellisville and Eureka. They're different sized cities. They're made up differently than Wildwood is a little bit. Chesterfield certainly, but they're experiencing the same thing. So Wildwood is not immune to what's happening everywhere else. We have, main roads that go everywhere, and the bad guys follow those roads. We have had some recent issues with actual break-ins now, where they are breaking windows during daytime hours at some of the parks, which that's kind of unusual also, but that tends to be a kind of a separate group of individuals are doing that. And that's break and go. I mean, They walk in there, they look for what they're going to look for, and they're breaking into cars where they know they got something. So generally it's going to be an item of value or a purse or something like that that's visible or partially visible. They're not going to break a window unless they know what they can get to. So
that's an item of value in view.
Absolutely. So in order to combat that, we are, certainly, doing our best to be around the parks, patrolling our subdivisions. The problem with that is they see us coming. If they're on foot, a marked car coming down the street is going to be seen. A lot of times they're in stolen vehicles to begin with, so they only spend a short amount of time on a street. They're really not spending a lot of time rooting through cars. It only takes a couple seconds really to open a car door, root around, open a glove box, maybe open a console, and be done. One thing I'll add to that, which is very concerning, is the number of guns that are left in unlocked vehicles by residents that are taken. So that's another item that they're looking for is a gun. So if it's in the glove box, it's under the seat, between the seats, wherever somebody might feel they've stuck a gun, out of sight, as far as, where they have it for protection or for their job or whatever, they're finding those guns just as easy, and they're taking the guns. So, certainly is very concerning, again, to us, that, should an officer encounter one of these people, they could be armed just by fluke that they got into a car that had a gun. So, it's not as easy. It's not. Things in the past used to be, kids going through a subdivision and stealing change or sunglasses or CDs and stuff like that. This is more of an enterprise, a criminal enterprise, where they're really looking for the car to steal the car. Mm-hmm. But if they can grab items of value, and certainly a gun, out of a car, that's what they're going to be hoping for. So, we're doing the best we can. Again, we put out reminders as much as we can. We've gotten some supplemental help from the city as far as reminder signage. So we should be seeing those around. If there's residents or homeowners associations that want those signs at the entrances to their subdivision, we'll do our best to get those out there. And again, they're just reminders, something to think about. So beyond that, I'll say that we can knock wood, I guess, at this point, that we had no fatal traffic accidents in 2020.
Oh, good.
I don't want to throw a number out there, but there can be anywhere from 1 to 3 could occur, based on a lot of different factors. So that was a good thing that we didn't have any fatalities over the past year. So beyond that, in the future, if I get some better numbers, I'll certainly present those at a meeting in the future. But right at the moment, I don't have any hard numbers. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Steve.
Thank you, Marshall. Not any questions, but if it's okay with you, I would like to take a moment just to compliment Captain Mundell and Sergeant Wendling and their team for everything that they do for the residents in Wildwood. They have an extremely tough job. We've seen the press, we've all seen on social media and others about the rash of things that are occurring right now, as the captain just talked about, primarily crimes of opportunity. So there is some onus on the residents to help out in that regard. But given the rash of bad press, if you will, that the Wildwood precinct is getting right now, the captain and I have met twice this week. He was gracious enough, along with Lieutenant Ware, spent 3 hours with me on Tuesday, explaining everything that they're doing. So we're working on some initiatives. Captain Mundell and his team are providing how their manpower is working, how they're combating some of this. We talked about the signs. We talked about the beats and how we might be able to move some people around and so forth. The captain and I spent another couple hours again today. So he's been very, very generous with his time to help me understand, so that I in turn can take that information and bring it to the mayor and the council, as well as the residents. I've asked the captain to prepare like an open letter to the residents explaining what they're doing, so that they don't think that the police are just sitting on their thumbs, which couldn't be further from the truth. And all the things, I mean, I wish everyone else had the opportunity, as I have had this week, to really kind of get behind the scenes and hear everything that they're doing. But I think an open letter, and I know the captain's working on that now. I may see that tomorrow or perhaps on Monday, but we want to blast that out to the residents to say, this is what we're doing. But I really want to compliment the captain and Sergeant Wendling and the team, because they've been very open in terms of what they're doing. They know how they might be able to move people around and do some things, bring in some additional force to combat. So I just want to, publicly, if you will, compliment them on the work that they're doing.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate hearing it.
Awesome. Hear, hear. So, well, I know just as a resident here, I've been, a resident here in this city for 14 years. And I think most of you know, I retired from DEA, 2 years ago, I guess. And I know the work that the police department does throughout the county very well. And I've always been impressed with the work that the Wildwood precinct does for this city. It is truly outstanding. And I've lived in different places across the country, and this is one of the safest communities I've ever lived in. And I think that's a compliment to the people that live here, but it is a tremendous compliment to our excellent relationship with the county police. And I know my neighbors up here, and before I got on the city marshal thing, whatever it is, people here used to talk about, it's just nice to see that patrol car once in a great while driving through the neighborhood. And that's one of the things that I think really impresses most people here. And the fact that, quite frankly, when people take vacations, you offer the opportunity, people can communicate that with you, and you're more than willing to have a car drive by and just make sure everything looks in order, right? So that is a service that's not offered in every community, I can tell you that. So my hat's off to you, Captain and Sergeant Wendling, just for the work you guys do every day. Truly tremendous.
Thank you, Marshall. I want to add just to that. We don't think of it, but the city of Wildwood is the same size as the city of St. Louis. And you think the city of St. Louis has this huge place, but Wildwood, we kind of think of small towns sometimes because it does have that feel, but it kind of covers all the, from a rural area to, huge parks, to subdivisions, to, commercial areas. It's pretty much got it all. But it's a lot of ground to cover, with our staff, and they do a good job doing it. So
yes, they do. Awesome. All right. Moving on. So we took care of the old business, some of the new business. St. Paul Road proposed audit.
This will be very brief, Marshall. I probably should have more accurately placed this under for information.
Okay.
But what I wanted to convey to you tonight, we had the concern from the resident on St. Paul Road that was brought to you, I guess, as a comment at the last meeting. After our meeting in December, Captain Mundell and I talked in more detail, and I think what we've decided to do is kind of follow the pattern that we're doing on Route 100 with MoDOT. I think we've talked about the safety audit or assessment on Route 100 that's ongoing. Hopefully will be wrapped up here shortly. So what we want to potentially do is follow that same pattern on St. Paul Road and do a safety audit or assessment. Now, this would be strictly a Wildwood venture, so primarily between Public Works and the Wildwood precinct, but take a deep dive into St. Paul and look at it from a safety perspective and things that we can do to make that a safer road for everybody who drives it. So I'm excited about the idea, and I think it could be a great partnership with the Wildwood precinct. And if we can start with St. Paul, maybe we can continue that, on other roads in future years potentially.
Okay, terrific. Any questions for Rick about that?
No, I'll throw in, I'll compliment Rick on that, these roadway safety audits, I really wasn't familiar with. And, he suggested that for Highway 100, and we got MoDOT involved in that one. And, just to get out there and actually take a very close look at intersections in the roadway, and, to touch it as opposed to drive past it at the speed limit, of course. I think an audit's just a great way to try and address issues that a lot of times it's simple stuff. It just may not get noticed. So I look forward to participating in this one also.
Great. Thank you.
And we'll be glad to provide if you desire, we certainly could provide the results of those to the board and let you know the results of that effort and what we're proposing to move forward with.
Okay, I think that would be great. Thank you. Moving on then, so we have the proposed turn restriction for Truman Road at West Glen Farms. Rick, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Marshall. Appreciate it. So this is a new topic, at least for, I think, most of the board members. And this was brought up by Councilmember Dodwell at City Council meeting. I think it was in December, could have been late November. I forget exactly when it was. But, and it's another, I think, longstanding issue that has been present. The concern is at the intersection of Truman Road and West Glen Farms. That intersection is adjacent to Route 100 and West Glen Farms. And that's really what presents the problem. Because what happens is that westbound traffic on Truman is unable to turn left onto West Glen Farms because the traffic on West Glen Farms is backed up with the signal there at Route 100. So it's a frustrating situation. Truman Road westbound at that intersection is just one lane westbound. There's not a separate lane for right turners. There's just one lane. So the right turners and the left turners vie for the single lane. And I'm sure at periods of the day, I'm not as familiar with that location personally, especially I'm sure in the evening and the morning peak hours. I'm sure folks get frustrated because they can't get out, or they're behind a left turner and they want to go right and they're waiting for a long period of time. So that's kind of the situation. It's probably worse also, I'll point out the Ellisville ballpark does tend to have bursts of traffic when they have games and such and practices and folks are leaving. So I'm sure that contributes to it at times as well. And there's a newer apartment complex that was constructed in Ellisville. I'm sure there's a bit more traffic down or coming to and from that apartment complex that contributes to the problem. To make things complicated, this is an intersection is actually in MoDOT's jurisdiction. It's in the city of Wildwood, although our eastern city limit is just several hundred feet to the east of this location. So the traffic essentially is going and coming from Ellisville. And the intersection is under the jurisdiction of MoDOT. So any changes have to be approved by MoDOT, which obviously doesn't make it any easier to get things done. As I mentioned, it's, I believe, in an ongoing situation, and I'm sure residents have been frustrated with it for some time. Previously, MoDOT did put up some do not block intersection signs. So if you drive through there, you'll notice them. There's one for the westbound direction, I believe, and one potentially for the southbound direction. So the idea was to keep the intersection open to allow people to turn left and to access West Glen Farms. But I don't know that frankly works real well. Those of you who drive the intersection probably know more than I do, but I suspect those signs are probably not well noticed or even followed by a lot of drivers. That has been done. Just a couple other points I would kind of throw out there. and I know you, if you drive through the location, I'm sure you're very familiar with it. There is a connection to the westbound lanes of Route 100 at Autumn View Terrace Drive, and that is about 1,000 feet to the east of West Glen Farms. And so that provides access to Route 100. That connection is rather short and very narrow. It's not a very effective connection. It only stores a couple cars. It's not very wide for trucks, so it doesn't work real well, quite frankly, but it does provide access to Route 100. I suspect a lot of the folks that are turning left at Truman are avoiding that connection or using it as a spillover potentially because they either don't like to access Highway 100 westbound at the connection, or they feel it's dangerous during peak hours of the traffic potentially. It's really kind of difficult to know what's going on there without doing a more in-depth study. But just be aware that that is in place. Ms. Dodwell, just to be quite clear, she was requesting the inaction of a westbound left turn restriction at West Glen Farms Drive. And I certainly understand the concern there, and certainly that is not an illegitimate request at all. There is issues with folks trying to make that left turn. Captain, I asked if you'd last minute try to check the crash records, and I believe you did have an email with some quick results here just a short while ago. Would you like to talk briefly about what you found?
Yeah, let me get it in front of me here. So really, there's no crash data. So as far as there being an accident problem at that intersection, there's not. The two accidents that happened there, and I don't know what the time frame was. One of them was somebody on a motorcycle that I believe a car turning off of 100 turned wide and more or less scared the motorcyclist to think that he was going to get hit on the wrong side. So he laid the motorcycle down. And then the other one was I believe somebody backing up, kind of a rear end type accident at the intersection. So no, it wasn't someone backing up. It was a guy's foot slipped off the brake and he bumped into somebody. That was the rear ender. So as far as crash data, there's nothing there that, the intersection was blocked or a crash was caused by someone cutting out, something like that. The data is just not there for crashes. My opinion, it's a convenience thing, or an inconvenience thing, I should say, that, perhaps people are being frustrated trying to get out and may block or partially block the road for a second, waiting for their opportunity to get out there. But beyond that, I don't have any hard, fast evidence or critique of really what's happening there, where it's causing any kind of a gridlock or anything like that. I go through there occasionally, and for the most part, traffic flows and people, take their turns as they should. So back to you, Rick.
Thank you, Captain. I'll
Dave?
Rick, go ahead, Rick. I didn't want to cut you off.
Well, I was just going to say a couple more quick things, and I'll wrap up if that's okay. Just briefly, I think that my recommendation primarily was to, and I haven't had the real opportunity to bring this to MoDOT. I have brought it to MoDOT's attention. I haven't really gotten much of a response yet in terms of their position on this issue. So I would like to have some more time to maybe work on that. And I would not oppose at all to requesting Ryan Piercy, their area engineer, to join us at a future meeting if he'll do that. I can't commit that he'll do that, but that might be another option to talk about this concern. I really think another option would be that if you've been through the intersection over at Ellisville Town Center in Truman, going into the Home Depot or Kohl's, You probably noticed the do not block intersection markings that they've installed there. They created a very similar situation, which they might regret someday, over there. And frankly, they striped the intersection, do not block intersection. So that would be one ask that we can make of MoDOT, is to consider doing the same thing here. Again, try to create greater awareness of folks to not block it off so people can get out. So that was one idea that I wanted maybe to discuss with Ryan Piercy, the area engineer at MoDOT. So I'll turn it over for questions at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Both Deb and I have driven that intersection 1,000 times in the last 10, 11 years. And I think a solution might be, if we could get Ellisville to agree, would be to make the Truman Road one-way westbound from that stops. You just mentioned the intersection just to the east there. It's Autumn something.
Autumn View Terrace.
What is it? Autumn
View Terrace.
From there up to Westland Farms, make that one way going westbound, and just that section, and that way. And then at the intersection, we could actually, there's room there for 2 lanes. We could put 1 lane left hand, 1 lane right hand. People wanted to get on Fullerton, going north would be very easy. There's no solution to making, if you're coming off that, trying to make a left-hand turn onto Fullerton Meadows during rush hour. Okay, you'll sit there for a couple of change of lights because of the traffic backed up wanting to make a left-hand turn. So I don't think there's anything to solve that. It's the hazard of normal traffic when you're coming down there and somebody wants to make a left-hand turn into Truman and isn't mindful of traffic coming off of 100 coming onto Fullerton Meadow. And I've seen a couple of, just in my experience, I've seen a couple of fairly near misses and a couple of honks of people making that turn and not aware of traffic coming off of 100. So just throw it in the hopper, Rick, as again, another maybe option is, instead of spending a whole lot of money to stuff, make that section, and there's no other driveways on that little section that would hinder anybody. So make that little section a one-way going westbound, and then at the intersection have a left turn lane and a right turn lane.
We could certainly bring that up with MoDOT for discussion. Yeah, and like you say, Ellisville would certainly probably need to be part of that as well.
Sure. Denny?
Yeah. Well, first of all, is there any way we could get the city of Ellisville to annex that 100 feet? Just joking.
Well,
so, yeah, this sounds like a problem that there's almost no good solution to. But I was just wondering if maybe we could, in your discussions with MoDOT, and I don't know if this is a good idea or not, I'm just picturing it in my mind, because I frequently drive that coming from Home Depot or Commerce Bank or something. So I've experienced firsthand the problem. But that is a difficult or just not a desirable left turn there at that Autumn, I don't know if it's Autumn Terrace or Autumn Trace. You know, it's steep, it's narrow. You don't know if you're really supposed to be turning down that to get on, get on westbound Manchester. I don't know if there's anything we could do at that location to make that a more desirable, turning movement. Now, again, it's in the city of Ellisville, so maybe, from the standpoint of funding, that becomes an issue, unless MoDOT does it. So I just throw that out there as another thought.
It would be MoDOT, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be MoDOT.
Yeah.
And
I pulled up to that location and made that left and got on westbound Manchester. And it almost feels like, geez, it's like doing a crossover, in a divided highway. It's almost like,
right.
Am I really supposed to be doing this? You get this in your mind, I think, because it's on a steep grade and it's kind of a funky little turn there. Right. Maybe something could be to make more people want to go that way, because I think, if you drive it enough, you should get frustrated enough up at the intersection that, you know, where the light is, that you just don't go there, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts or concerns? I think Rick's plan is a good one. Get back with MoDOT. We've got, he's got a couple ideas of another suggestion from Dave to discuss with them, because it's not a road necessarily that we control. So any other thoughts? Nope. All right, well, keep pursuing with MoDOT, Rick. Good luck. And if they want to come join us for a meeting, that's fine by me.
I could certainly make that request and see if he's willing to spend an evening with us and have that on the agenda for just really any questions, frankly.
Yeah.
I know he was kind enough, Ryan was kind enough to be with City Council. Steve, it was like end of, no, it's been a while now, September maybe.
Oh, not that far.
Okay. Moving on, the last item of new business, the draft policy for speeding on residential streets. An update.
Yes, thank you. This will be real brief as well. I was hoping, quite frankly, to have a formal draft prepared and to present to you. I don't have that yet. I did get some time to work on it, and it's in progress. And I think I need a few more hours to wrap it up, and then I'm going to, the plan is to provide it to the Wildwood precinct, and we're going to need to go through it pretty thoroughly between the Public Works Department and the Wildwood precinct, but it is in progress. I wanted to let you know that.
Awesome.
All goes well, I can hopefully get it back to you in another month.
Okay. Sounds like a good plan.
Rick, we can wait if you want to finish it up right now, and we'll just kind of hang out for a while.
You want to wait?
That's right.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait.
A couple more hours today, you know?
Make this a Zoom cocktail hour.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll play trivia or something while you're finishing up that draft.
Awesome. So, yep. That is it for the agenda as far as I can tell. I see no other items other than everyone's favorite, adjournment.
Hey.
Any questions, comments for the good of the group before we adjourn? Hearing none, I will take that as a motion for adjournment. I'm going to guess it will be unanimous, but I'll put anyone object? I didn't think so. All right. Hey, thank you everybody for your time. And again, Happy New Year. And best is yet to come for 2021, right? Dave?
Yeah. See you guys.